Welcome to this CodeRage 9 session, leveraging third-party components to accelerate app development with FireMonkey. This is Eli M with FMXexpress.com, and I've been working heavily with the FireMonkey framework for over a year. However, I first used Delphi in 1997 with Delphi 3. Over the last 6 years or so, I've deployed over 500 web and mobile games using various technologies which have received over 215 million gameplays by over 120 million users worldwide. What we're going to cover today are a number of third-party components for FireMonkey from around the web. These include extended FMX components, native platform components, native library wrappers, mapping components, progress dialog components, scripting components, video components, research and charting components, and finally a VCL and FMX remoting tool for HTML5. One of my favorite things about using Delphi are the third-party components. If you are a long-time Delphi developer, you know how powerful components are. I think Delphi has a unique component architecture, and it is one of the reasons why Delphi is a force multiplier for your development. Using third-party components can save you time and money. The Delphi Runtime Library provides a roadmap for you to build your own components. The Delphi Runtime Library comes with source code and helps to create a culture where third-party developers also include source code with their components. You should try to always get components that include source code so that you can upgrade or modify them if you need to do so. A lot of third-party component developers offer free trials of their components, so you should try them out first if possible to make sure they are going to meet your requirements. I consider component authors as other members of my development team. When you're looking at prices on third-party components, keep in mind how much it would cost to build and support that functionality yourself. Some of the components we are going to cover are free and open source. You also have to keep in mind how long it would take you to build that functionality. Time is money, and using third-party components allows you to jump ahead and start building that logic of your app now instead of rebuilding basic functionality. FireMonkey components may even be more powerful than VCL components because of their multi-device capabilities. I'd like to highlight some of the great FireMonkey components out there which can really accelerate your app development. Extended FMX components are components that extend existing functionality found in the Delphi Runtime Library. These components here are from TMS software. The first component set I like to highlight is TMS Component Studio for FireMonkey. It is actually a collection of 7 FireMonkey component suites from TMS software. They include TMS Pack for FireMonkey, TMS Charts for FireMonkey, TMS Cloud Pack for FireMonkey, TMS Web G Maps for FireMonkey, TMS Web OS Maps for FireMonkey, TMS ICL, and TMS MCL. The TMS pack for FireMonkey contains some useful components. The main ones I would like to highlight are the web browser component, the memo component, and the edit component. The web browser component works on all 4 FireMonkey platforms, and it uses Chromium FMX on Windows, WebKit on Mac OS X, and the native web view controls on Android and iOS. The memo component wraps the normal T-memo, but offers extended capabilities. It seems to mainly be built to allow you to build your own IDE because it has a gutter and syntax highlighting. However, these functionalities can be turned off, which allows you to use it as a standard memo component. The edit component offers a wide variety of extended features, including autocomplete, mask edit for alphanumeric, float, money, upper and lower case types. And finally, there are at least 50 different FireMonkey controls here, so you're sure to find something useful in all of the gauges, meters, scopes, LEDs, switches, star ratings, signature components, and more. And if we click over to the TMS website, I'll run you through some of the components. The first component here is a grid component. We can click on that and preview screenshots from the grid component. Moving on to the table view control. Scroll down and you can see the table view control and the different functionality that it has. Here's some screenshots from the table view control demo. So you can see all the different functionality that it has. Moving on to the memo component. And we'll click on that. You can see here's the gutter and the syntax highlighting. And so this memo component runs on all 4 platforms. So If you need to build an IDE on iOS, for example, you could use the memo component for that. Moving on to the edit controls. Has a list edit. Here's the edit control that I talked about earlier with the autocomplete, a search edit. Moving on to the pickers and selectors. Here's the different various controls here. It has a color picker, calendar picker. And moving on to the instrumentation, this is where the gauges and the LEDs that I was talking about earlier. You see the screenshots of all those different components. Scope, matrix label, spinner, and here's some examples of those components in action in those screenshots. And finally, moving on to the last section, the miscellaneous components. Some of these are brand new components, the task dialog, the check group, and the signature capture component. Those are new. And then finally, here's the web browser component. And you can see the functionality that it has. And just showing off the rest of the components that you can get, pop-up components, page slider component, and finally the star rating component. And all those components come in the TMS pack for FireMonkey. Moving on to the second set of extended FMX components. I'd like to highlight the TMS Cloud Pack because it offers API wrappers for a huge number of cloud and web services like Dropbox, Box, Google Drive, OneDrive, Bitcasa, Facebook, Twitter, Google Calendar, Google Contacts, Windows Live, LinkedIn, Flickr, Bicasa, YouTube, Instagram, Pushover, Foursquare, Privy, Wonderground, and sending SMS messages. The Cloud Pack works on all FMX platforms. So we're going to click over to the TMS website and very quickly preview the information they have available on the TMS Cloud Pack. Again, here's all the API logos for the providers that they offer. Here's the list of components that they offer in the Cloud Pack and what APIs they connect to. And here's there's the Wonderground example and all the other components, brief information about each of those components. And so here's some examples of the components in action screenshots, and that's TMS Cloud Pack for FireMonkey. And next we have TMS FlexCell for VCL and FireMonkey, which is a component suite for reading and writing Excel files on all 4 FMX platforms. It can read and write Excel 95 to Excel 2013 files and then export them as PDF, SVG, and HTML5. A pretty powerful component suite for the enterprise. So we're going to click over to the TMS website for this component suite and scroll through some of the options that they have. Here's all the information about it, all the file formats that it loads up and exports. Here's the various screenshots to show you examples of FlexCell in action. And there's some testimonials here at the bottom, and that is TMS FlexCell Studio for VCL and FireMonkey. Moving on to native platform components. The DPF iOS components are a set of open source native component wrappers for the iOS platform. There are over 80 different demos included which will show you how to use them. However, you cannot mix FireMonkey and DPF iOS controls on the same form. You can, however, mix FMX component forms with DPF iOS component forms. It is also a great source of examples and source code for how to integrate with iOS and access various other iOS frameworks. If you do use these components, you lose the multi-device advantage that FireMonkey offers, but you gain native platform performance. So if we click over to SourceForge, we can see and click into the code section. I'll show you the list of the 80 different demos. So as you can see here, audio player, animation, button demos, drawing bitmap demos, and these are all the native controls. HTTP content demos, in-app purchases, PDF export and viewer, sliders, table views, iCloud, iAd banner demos. So those are all the demos in DPF iOS. The DPF Android components are another set of open source native component wrappers from the same author for the Android platform. These components wrap the native Android SDK components and allow you to mix them with FMX components on the same form. Again, you lose the multi-device advantage, but gain a native platform performance advantage. So we can click over again to SourceForge and check out the code section and the demo section of DPF Android. As you can see, button, analog demos, image view demo. There's also a video view demo and a web view demo. Also how to do toast messages using the DPF Android component suite. TMS ICL is very similar to the DPF iOS components, except that the TMS ICL is a commercial suite from TMS software. One difference is that you can also mix the ICL components with FMX components on the same form, which you cannot do with the DPF components. There are 44 different native iOS components for you to use. We can click over to their website and check out all the different components. And there's 44 components on this page, so we'll just scroll down here and you can see all the different ones. iCloud, PDF, there was a peer-to-peer one there at the top, iCloud, again, collection view, rich edit view toolbar, color picker, font picker, table view. There's the map component, we'll talk about that later. Page view controller, compose view controller, native web view if you need that, just for iOS, movie player, activity views, the mail controller, action sheet, navigation controller, some more components here, page view, tab bar, pop-up controller, the image picker controller, the native button, date picker, label, picker view, progress bar, scroll view, steppers, switches, text field, text view, toolbar. There's also a wrapper component that wraps a FireMonkey form as a view for use with other native iOS controls like master and detail view of table view. And finally, there's the image view control. Lastly, there is the TMS MCL component suite from TMS software, which are wrapper components for the native platform components on Mac OS X. There are 27 components currently available in this component suite, and they give you native platform performance on the Mac as well. There are also some components here that don't have equivalent multi-device components in FireMonkey. With all of these native platform components, you can also use conditional compilation to target the specific platform. So we'll click over for this component set and scroll down, and you can see the different. This is very similar to the iOS versions, but this is for Mac. So the iCloud, PDF, rich text view, table view, label, view, progress bar, button, popover, text field, date picker, stepper, tab view, checkbox, PDF view, thumb view, thumbnail view, toolbar, scroll view, slider, radio button, the web view for Mac. So you can put the web browser in your Mac application in FireMonkey. And that's the TMS MCL component suite. Next up here are some native library wrappers. Now these components are from Winsoft, and they are wrappers for a variety of open source libraries, but these are commercial components. Source code is included when you purchase the components. We have the Android JDBC wrapper, which allows you to directly connect to the Microsoft SQL server from Android. Now I'm going to click over to the page for this component, and you can see that it does support some other databases as well, including Sybase and PostgreSQL. There is the optical barcode recognition wrapper component, which uses the ZBar library, and it works on Android, iOS, Windows, and OS X. So I'm going to click over to the page for that component, and you can also see the different barcode styles that it supports, and there's 3 different demos for platforms, so you can try it out. Next, we have the optical character recognition library component, which utilizes the Tesseract OCR library. The wrapper currently supports Windows, OS X, and Android. So we're going to click over to that page for that one. It uses the Leptonica image processing library as well, and there are 3 different demos, one for each platform. And you get more information on this page about the Tesseract OCR engine as well. That brings us to the barcode generator wrapper component, which wraps the ZINT barcode generator. It supports all 4 platforms, Android, iOS, Windows, and OS X. So let's click over the component for that. And here are the over 50 symbologies that it supports creating. And there are demos that you can download and use there. Lastly, there are a number of COM port components available from Winsoft which support a variety of COM ports on Windows, Android, and OS X. So let's go check those out. Here's one of the ones for Android, and we can click over and we can see that there is also an FTDI version and a prolific version. Here's the OS X version of the COM port library, and here's the Windows version of the COM port library. One final thing I'd like to mention about all of these Winsoft components is that they are all also available as a pack in the Winsoft component package, which is significantly cheaper than all the components combined. So if you need 2 or 3 of these components, it may be cheaper to just get the whole package. And we can see the list of all the components in the Winsoft component package here. The price is on the right. Here's all the total if you purchase them all separately. And then here at the bottom you can see the one price for all of those components. And that's a significant savings there. Now I would like to talk about mapping components. There are 3 types of mapping components: native FireMonkey components, native platform components, and web browser-based components. The TEC native maps is a native FireMonkey component which supports all platforms and offline image caching, so it does not need an internet connection to function. It can connect to a variety of map sources like OpenStreetMaps. We can click over here to the page for this component and you can see some examples. Here's one example of the component in action. And you can scroll down, you can see that it can connect to Bing for its mapping information. Some other examples here. It shows here that your own tile server, you can connect to that, and local files for the tiles. Other information here as we scroll down: positioning on the map, mount position, zoom, a mini map. You can have a mini map in the corner here. And so if you're interested in that component, be sure to check that out. The TMS FMX native MK map view is available in the TMS ICL pack, and it is a platform native component. TDPF map view is in the DPF iOS components and is also a platform native component. They wrap around the native Apple Map solution and use Apple Maps. There are no licensing fees to use the Apple Maps as far as I know. The TMS FMX Web OS maps and the TMS FMX Web G maps both come in the TMS Component Studio for FireMonkey that I talked about earlier, and they wrap the OpenStreetMaps and the Google Maps APIs. It uses a web browser for display, and you can use them on all 4 FireMonkey platforms because they use the TMS FMX web browser functionality. OpenStreetMaps requires their copyright information to be displayed, but there are no other licensing fees as far as I know. Google Maps does have yearly licensing fees for businesses, but there are some exceptions for Android apps. So we can click over here to the OpenStreetMaps component page and see their information. Here's the terms of use if you're interested in that, and here is the screenshot. We can check that out so you can see an example of the component in action. And then the Google Maps one is here. Here's the example of the Google Maps. And their terms of use as well. Lastly, you can use the standard web browser controls like the TMS FMX web browser wrapper or the TDPFJ web view on Android to display maps from any other mapping provider. However, you will obviously need internet access to utilize any of these browser-based mapping solutions, which can be tricky on mobile devices. Let's talk about Progress Dialog components. There are some really good free Progress Dialog components which I use from developer Yaroslav Brovin. They have support for XE5, XE6, and XE7. They use native platform functionality on the device for their animations so they are smooth and professional. You can use the activity version or the progress bar version. However, they only work on Android and iOS. There are also a few other components that come with the Progress Dialog components as well. For Windows and Mac OS X, you will need to build your own custom T-form progress dialogs. You can then use conditional compilation to display the native platform dialogs or your own custom dialogs. I use these components in my enterprise application and implemented custom T-form progress dialogs for desktop machines. And if we click over to the page where you can get more information about this component, we can see some example screenshots of the component in action. So this first ones here are the activity component waiting example on iOS, and then here's the activity component on Android. A couple different versions there. Here's the progress dialog component with the progress bar on iOS, and then here is that same component on Android, the different versions. And then here was the other components that I talked about that come with the progress dialog and the activity dialog components for free. There's an action sheet, turns into a menu dynamically based on your action list. There's a colors picker panel, and then there is a linked label which will launch a browser when you tap or click on the link. This page is in Russian, so I've got my Google Translator translating it for us. Moving on to scripting components. There are two multi-device scripting options I'd like to cover. The first is PAX Compiler, which works on all 4 platforms and is an interpreter scripting engine. The scripting language it supports are Object Pascal, Basic, and JavaScript. It is tightly integrated with Delphi, and that gives you a lot of control of what you can do with scripting. Keep in mind that as far as I know, you cannot deploy dynamic scripts like this on iOS to the Apple Store. You can, however, use this component for your iOS enterprise deployments. The second scripting option is to use the JavaScript engine contained in the web browser on each platform. You can load up your web page in the web browser component and execute your script. The various browser components have different functions for loading strings or local files directly into the browser component. You can then execute your script, and finally, when you get the results from your script, you can navigate to a URL and catch the navigation in one of the navigate events and parse the URL. You have a limited ability to bring data back out of the web browser component, so your integration with the script inside is limited. Depending on which browser you use, you can run your scripts on all 4 platforms. And now we're going to click over to PAX Compiler, and you can see all the functionality that it provides listed here. Let's talk about video components. The best components I know of for FireMonkey are the FFmpeg wrapper components from Flash AV Software Corp. They offer video player and video converter components for all 4 FireMonkey platforms by wrapping the open source FFmpeg library. I have not used these components directly, but I have used FFmpeg with another multi-device tool, and it worked well for converting an Android video format for playback on iOS devices. They give a truly amazing list of features available in both the player and converter components. There are also trial versions available for all of them, so you can see if they are going to work for your needs. And so now we're going to click over and check out all the different functionality that they list that the player component on Android can do. And pretty much the functionality is the same across all platforms, because FFmpeg is a cross-platform library. And now we're going to click back and check out the converter list and what it can do. Briefly, we're going to cover research and charting components. These research components are from Riversoft AVG, and they include components for genetic algorithms, fuzzy logic, and an inference engine component library. You will probably need to come back and review all the functionality that they offer to really get a feel for what you can do with them. I'm going to click over to each of these components, component pages, and you'll briefly see the capabilities that they offer. This one has the key benefits are three genetic operations, all these selection methods, read and write your genetic solutions as XML, and more. There's a demo you can download and try out. The fuzzy logic component library, we'll click over to that, and you can see the benefits here. 29 different fuzzy hedges, fuzzy operations, defuzzification methods, and there's a demo that you can check out. And next up, we're going to click over the inference engine. Now, the inference engine includes a charting component suite and the fuzzy logic component library. So both of those are included, and as you can see, here's the key benefits, and there are some demos you can also check out for those components. There are 3 FireMonkey charting components I'd like to highlight which work on all 4 platforms. They are T-Chart Pro FMX, TMS charts for FireMonkey, and Riversoft AVG charting component suite. They are commercial suites, but the AVG charting suite is available for free for non-commercial use. I'd like to briefly show you the features of each of the charting suites, and you can evaluate them at your leisure. So we're going to click on the T-Charts Pro component, scroll down, show you some of the information about it. Check out the screenshots. We'll go through those, show you the different kinds of charts that you can create with T-Charts Pro. All kinds of different variations of charts here. You're sure to find one that will meet your needs. And moving on, there's the specification list, all the features, all the different kinds of charts that you can do. And moving on to TMS charts. And here's the page for TMS charts. Here's some example charts that it does. Sine and cosine. And here's the information about all the different styles of charts that it creates, and that's TMS charts for FireMonkey. Moving on to the Riversoft AVG charting component. Here are the key benefits that it offers, all the different chart types, and all the other information that it allows you to do with that component. And here's all the demo charts that you can create. And moving on to the next slide. The last thing I'd like to cover is a tool for extending Delphi apps in both VCL and FMX to HTML5. There are 2 different tools here from Cyblesoft. The first is for FireMonkey and is called Web FMX. The second is for Delphi VCL and is called Thinfinity Virtual UI. Both of these tools are app remoting solutions. Basically, they allow you to create an app server where you host and run your FMX and VCL applications. This app server loads up your app and then sends the visual display to a remote user via web browser connection. User responses and data is sent back to the application on the app server. They use WebSockets and display in an HTML5 canvas. There is no deployment or setup on client machines. You update the app server with a new client and new connections start running the apps. In addition to mouse clicks and keyboard strokes, you can print remotely, and you can even tie open and save dialogues to the remote user. So in the web browser, you could click open and then select a file on the local browser machine. The file would be uploaded and become accessible to the app on the app server. The limiting factors are how much RAM and CPU power is available on your app server machines. So now we're going to click over and see the architecture of WebFMX. You can see there's a free trial available, and there is also, here's the requirements, and there's also a live demo which we're going to click over to. And so this is the actual app server, this page loaded up from the app server. You can see all the apps that are registered in the app server. We're going to click on the controls demo, which is the generic controls demo from FireMonkey. And here it is, This just loaded up on a Windows machine somewhere, and the FireMonkey app, and I'm controlling the FireMonkey app via the HTML5 canvas. And you can see all the different example FireMonkey controls here. FireMonkey is awesome. So this is me typing in a web browser in HTML5 canvas. It sends it all the way to the Windows App Server and displays it, and then I'm seeing the results of that. So we're going to close that out. And moving on to Thinfinity Virtual UI, we're going to click on that. You can see the architecture here, and we'll click over and you can see the requirements for the Thinfinity. Close out that. That's all we have time to cover in this session, so unleash FireMonkey on your existing and future multi-device projects. FireMonkey is moving fast, so there's always something new being released. Be sure to check out fmxexpress.com daily for the latest FireMonkey tips and tricks.